our Atlas approach is going to be a website. And the website is going to kind of depict the game that we've designed, and it'll have kind of tabs across the top there where you can click to view the trailer or click to kind of go into the prototype and things like that. So at a high level, that's kind of what we're going towards. So I'm just going to read our short version of the discourse of kind of where we're at, and then we'll go through and explain the game in more details. So over the course of the semester, research related to food insecurity and an analysis of the Blockhood game has resulted in the development of a participatory gaming concept. Conceived of as a progression through 3 increasingly complex levels, the game is designed to allow a community to better understand the interdependencies and relationships within food systems. Using modular architectural components, each level deals with the tangible elements of food production, preparation, and distribution, while introducing an intangible concept at each level: knowledge at the smallest scale, improved health at the urban scale, and development of community at the neighborhood scale. With a shared understanding of these relationships, communities can perceive food insecurity in a new light. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're targeting. And so in terms of the game, how it's set up, again, there's these 3 levels, and within each of the level, you need to balance the components of growing food, cooking food or preparing food, and distributing food. So throughout the game, that's what these colors will indicate, those kind of major components. And then at each level, as you achieve a balance within those components and through different relationships and proximities and things like that, you also start to generate these more like bigger social benefits of knowledge, health, and community. So at each level, you achieve one of those things. And so I'll go through level 1, and what you're going to see is this top row of images represents an analysis mode, and then you'll see the library of blocks that we have, which you can in the game purchase and place into the board. And then you'll see the systems analysis mode, and that's part of the game where it starts to analyze what you've put on the board and see if it's in balance and see what kind of relationships you're in. So in level 1, in this particular neighborhood, we're focusing on Sandwich neighborhood in Windsor. And there's a public school in that area. So this is kind of the game board here, and the school's right there. So that's where we start. And the school is kind of the starting point, and the stepping stone for the rest of the game. And so you start the game with a total amount of money and also a total amount of volunteers. And the object is to fill this kind of wheel at each level with units. So when you start the game, you enter into an analysis mode, and it'll highlight different opportunity zones. And the opportunity zones are areas within the urban landscape where you can start to place blocks. And so you can see the school parking lot might be an opportunity zone for distribution blocks, or the green space for growing food blocks, or using the school cafeteria for preparing food. And so from there, you can go through the library, and as we go to each level, the blocks get more complex, and their inputs and outputs get more complex as well. So at this early stage, we have garden blocks, we will have cooking blocks, and different market blocks that you can purchase. And each one has an input and an output, and so they start to depend on each other, and certain things will do well together and certain things will fail if their criteria is not being met. So this bean plot, for example, needs water, it needs 2 volunteers, and what it'll output is beans, organic waste, and some growing education. And so the player starts to place these blocks on the board, and when they go to the systems analysis, it'll start to assess what's going on. And so in the garden kind of grouping of blocks, you can see the inputs are doing well. The outputs are doing well overall, except it's lacking in organic waste. There's no like compost bin or any kind of thing like that on the board yet, so that's why that's happening. But it is generating some growing units, and then you can see those populating the wheel. And then it's also got this proximity or this relationship to the market where food can be sold. So you're getting income, you're getting surplus produce coming out from the market, and then again, system units for distribution. Those are populating the wheel. And then because of this relationship to the school, you're getting this knowledge benefit. And those are the main darker blocks that fill in here. And then the analysis mode will tell you that you're short volunteers and you need cooking components. Because as you can see, this whole part of the wheel has not been addressed. So this player didn't buy any cooking blocks or is not using the cafeteria, is not accommodating that part of the system. So that's kind of failing. And then as you continue to balance the system, you will achieve all the units. And then once that's complete, you get kind of like a banner that says you've achieved a balanced food system at the school. With this knowledge and surplus produce, you have unlocked the adjacent urban areas. Use the existing infrastructure to help grow your system. So then you move into level 2. So Simon is going to walk you through level 2 and level 3. Do you want me to stop sharing, Simon, so that you can?
Yeah, that might.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Y'all can see my screen?
Yep.
Good, sweet. So as Alyssa mentioned, once you complete level 1, then level 2 unlocks, which starts to look at things more in an urban scale, and things get a little bit more complex, but we're still dealing with those 3 components of the system: the production, the preparation, and the distribution of food. So in the opportunity analysis for this level, you're starting to look again at the urban scale, larger kind of plots of land or vacant buildings or existing kind of restaurants and cafes that you can start to tie your system into. So as you'll see in a moment, what we kind of focused in on was there's this Old Town Grocer, which is actually a vacant grocery store, and there's a vacant plot that backs up to it. So this kind of becomes a potential opportunity zone for somebody to develop sort of a production, possibly a preparation, and then a distribution system within this existing urban environment. And our blocks, change to kind of reflect this increased complexity as well. So you start to get things like larger community gardens, community garden plots with seating, different trellis elements that could be incorporated into existing sidewalks, fruit trees, and then we'll eventually have some kind of kitchen blocks that relate to how you can utilize existing restaurant or cafe infrastructure. And then store blocks like canned goods shelves, fruit and produce, and kind of like a cold storage area for prepared meals. And we also have sort of a food pantry / donation shelf as well that ties into this system. And so when you get down into the system analysis, you start to see this increased complexity come into play. And this level really starts to deal more with sort of those proximity bonuses. And that's how you sort of gather the bars of health. So as Alyssa mentioned, the level 2 deals with kind of improving health on an urban scale within the community. And so the proximity of both your garden and your distribution center to surrounding houses and apartments then increases that accessibility, that walkability of the neighborhood, and allows you to start to gather some of those health bars. So, as you see, you have a proximity boost for increased access and a green space boost that's associated with the large community garden. And then, inputs and outputs are somewhat the same, but they start to get a little bit more complex. The community garden has more outputs and starts to deal with things like fresh air, still dealing with kind of organic waste, but then also requiring compost as an input. And then the same with the store, which also starts to generate some more income, and then it also kind of generates donations for food aid within the community. And so once you eventually balance your bars there with production, preparation, and distribution, and then also gather the total amount of bars for health, you would move on and unlock level 3, which starts to zoom back in on the school block, but it's dealing overall with kind of the development of community. So the systems or the opportunity analysis mode is still going to deal with the same overall area. And it starts to call out places where you can begin to develop the key component of this level, which is actually the development of a community center. And so it calls out different vacant lots that you could potentially use to basically construct a community center. And the one that we chose to zoom in on, which you'll see in just a second, is the school corner plot. So the blocks here, again, become more complex, and they actually break up the building. So the production blocks deal with the shell of the community center. The preparation blocks kind of deal with the base, and then the distribution blocks deal more with interior. So you basically have kind of a green wall system, so to speak, sort of a variety of mobile kitchen workspaces, and then a variety of seating options as well. And this allows the player to sort of develop different types of community centers for different spots on the map. And these things, again, deal with the same sort of inputs and outputs, but they're much higher level now. They start to deal more with the kind of community and social benefits that accompany this level. And so, for example, just within the shell layer, you're dealing with outputs like produce, but then you're also dealing with outputs kind of like the experience of that space and the well-being that accompanies it. And then same with, just for example, the distribution blocks, your outputs start to become the gathering of people, the dialogue that occurs then, and the relationships there as well. And once you balance out those bars, that's essentially kind of the completion of the game, at which point hopefully the player has started to kind of gain a better understanding of the interdependencies and relationships within food systems, and then potentially kind of bring that back to their own community and apply it there.
To the bottom there, it's just like a finish kind of bar that would come across and just sort of say like you've used the components of the food system and you've attained knowledge, health, and community. And then there might be some like renderings that sort of show that example of a mini community center that we're kind of calling a food hub, but we're not really sure what to call it yet, but just some kind of inspirational view at the end.
Yep.
This is awesome. Like really well done, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, I'll kind of let Tom and Malad jump in, but I just wanted to say, yeah, you guys made a ton of progress. It's super excited. I'll have more to say, but like, Tom and Malad, what do you guys think, having not seen this probably in a while?
I need a little bit of time to kind of bask in its glory. So, just kind of the generic question is like, what game engine do you guys think?
Good question.
I guess my biggest push would be like, how much of this can you like how much of this can you make
exactly
interactive in some way, whether it's like a video like that shows us, that's a little like, it's like
a trailer, right?
Yeah, well, like a trailer, right? That's like animated in some way. Or, I mean, we can talk about different options.
I think what we're thinking, just at a high level, we're thinking it would be like a website that people can go on and like check out what the game would be, and then have like the game board, because we have a model, right, with all of the urban environment and all the blocks kind of placed in it. So then uploading that to like Enscape or Autodesk Live or Viewer or something, so that someone can like go onto the board and check out the blocks and check out like what we've done, but not necessarily be something that like they can click and place the blocks themselves. And then maybe the trailer would have like a walkthrough of the model kind of built in, and then have like maybe the menu pop up or like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be, I mean, how comfortable are you guys with like motion graphics or animating things where like I could see a version where it's like a scenario of someone playing and like the little bar may, like you may see the bar and this animation increase when a move is made, but you'd be essentially animating the process of playing the game.
Yeah. Kind of through like Premiere Pro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And After Effects.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think we have, you know, kind of a working knowledge of that. So I think it would be possible. And that was kind of one of the next steps moving forward was to really start to map out that video trailer and develop that.
I think, yeah, I mean, I sort of feel like you guys could spend all your time on the trailer. And then really like, so like one way I would think about it is like, and I don't know what program you guys are using, but let's say it's Illustrator, and like this is kind of compiled in Illustrator. That, you know, you could export various slides, and the slides would just be like, you know, blank slate, 2 blocks, and then another block. I'll take control, so maybe I can explain a little bit of what I mean. How's this work? Can you actually share again, Simon? Sorry, I think
Oh, yeah.
If you share, then I can actually, there's an option for me to take control.
Okay.
And like I can zoom around and stuff. I just need, I always forget. There we go. Request remote control. So I'm requesting.
Decline.
All
right. You should be good. There you go.
So, I mean, a simple version would be, you would start with this screen. Can you see my mouse?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the screen would be blank, and you'd have a blank meter. And whatever step 1 is, you know, inserting, or probably more like the garden, you know, you'd see the garden, and then the meter would increase to whatever it is. And then next step you'd see the market, and that'd be another slide. Like you would just organize these as layers in Illustrator. This is how I would do this. And each layer would be a different frame in the animation. Not that you would run all those frames, but like it would be a different moment in animation. So like you would run this, you'd have this as a, like just this piece and none of this stuff, and the meter would be empty. And then you'd export that as an image. You know, that would be in After Effects, and you'd run that for like 2 seconds or whatever, you know, whatever makes sense. And then you would export an image of like 3 of these, and the meter goes up a little bit. That's the next image, and you'd run that for 2 seconds. And then you'd go on and so forth. And the meters, the control pieces would, increase, or they would show, the information would show up here in each subsequent frame. And then maybe the last frame is some of this stuff. Or more importantly, it would be actually this piece at the bottom would be the last frame.
Right. So
I think that's a way, that's achievable in my mind. It's just exporting, it's just breaking this into layers and exporting it and then compiling it in After Effects. And it's not that difficult to do. That's certainly achievable. And I think would be pretty powerful as the trailer piece.
Right. So it's kind of more of a series of like gameplay screenshots, so to speak.
Yeah.
Closely spaced together in terms of progression than kind of what we have, because we basically go like beginning, almost end. And so it'd be like beginning, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Right. And you see this for, this whole thing would be 30 seconds. Right. And then this whole thing would be 30 seconds. Like these things would pop up.
Yeah.
I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you know how to get those things to pop up, Simon? Like those kind of call outs? Is that doable?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Are you doing this in Illustrator?
So far we are, yeah.
I think you could literally export as a JPEG.
Yeah.
Put this on a layer, turn the layer on and off, and it's just a separate JPEG. And then you just align all the JPEGs in After Effects. It's really easy, actually. I just put a video together recently, and I haven't used After Effects in 5 years, but I used to know pretty well.
Flash might be all right too.
What's that?
Using Adobe Flash.
I feel like Flash is kind of obsolete, but I like Flash, Tom. Yeah, that's what I would use, because then you can really animate all this stuff. But it's kind of like, because then you can program some of it, and I actually know how to do that. But there's a little bit of a learning curve, and it's a little bit of an outdated, in my mind.
Yeah. And
software.
If it's just like keyframe animations, then like I think Flash is like bare bones and might be a little bit more accessible in terms of that's pretty much it.
I guess what I'm sort of suggesting, like illustrative version of keyframing.
Mhm.
Like each JPEG export is a keyframe.
Right. What's the are After Effects and Premiere Pro, because I haven't used After Effects, but I've worked in Premiere Pro a couple times. Are they kind of synonymous? Is one of them sort of more advanced than the other?
Premiere Pro is definitely more advanced.
Okay.
After Effects is like it's like animated content that you would put into Premiere.
Okay, gotcha.
It's a little more raw. It's like my friend would explain it. It's like the Photoshop on steroids. Like, but it's more like media content, like motion media content to manipulate. And Premiere is more like the InDesign to After Effects is Photoshop, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, you would like create like explosions in After Effects and then like
Yeah.
put it in Premiere.
I think you can do it like with the Premiere Pro, and then have like the the picture and have the text pop up, put it on top of it, and then will show up after like timeline here you have.
Mhm.
So it goes, the text put it like a little bit like 2 seconds after the image, and then will pop up. Just by
Right.
the way. It works.
Yeah, I've done like in some of the earlier videos for this semester, there was points where I did like kind of flashing dots.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that way. It's
You
very
did that in Premiere, Simon?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a little bit of a pain, but
They're very
once you
similar.
kind of get one, you can just copy it throughout your
Yeah,
time.
they're very similar. Premiere has some like video, like professional video standard stuff that like I just don't understand. So like I get a little frustrated with it. After Effects is a little more raw, that you can like your composition board can be anything you want, and Premiere has to like fit specific kind of video parameters, which I find.
Okay.
After Effects is a little more raw, like you can do whatever the hell you want, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Premiere, you have to follow a little bit more of like industry standard, I feel.
Yeah.
Unless you really know it, and I don't.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Alyssa and Simon. The concepts are very cool, the way you present it, and then even the process of the game or the play. But I didn't see like who are the players. I mean, are you the players or are you engaging the students? I don't know if you want to talk like a little bit about the players. That would be great, probably in the research. It's a game, and we have to have players.
Yeah,
Right?
it's sort of an interesting question. I mean, we haven't talked about that. It's more of like, I don't know. Yeah, you're like, it's a nondescript,
Mhm.
which is I think okay. I mean, I'll let you guys can answer that.
Wait, Milad, when you say who are the players, you mean kind of like what is the target demographic, so to speak, for this game?
Yeah, some sort of like that. Yeah, especially or like probably you want to engage. I'm talking about like the engagement. Are you engaging like the public or the neighborhood to take part in the design? Because it's impacting them, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the intent is really, were this to ever be developed into like a full-fledged game, is that it would be available pretty much to anybody. And I think our intent is that it would ideally be used to kind of just help people, anyone, understand a little bit more about some of the, again, kind of interdependencies and relationships between these various elements in terms of the production of food, the preparation of food, and the distribution of food. And then, armed with hopefully a little bit of a better understanding of those things, they could kind of go back out into the world and either indirectly or directly, start to kind of change or at least better understand food systems. So I think our target demographic is probably pretty wide-reaching, ideally. And we were trying to, again, design it not so that it would only be used by like planners or people with intense knowledge of these things, but that so it could be used by essentially anybody.
So it's open a platform for people to engage.
Mhm.
That would be the hope, yeah.
Yep.
And I think too, there was a conversation, and Alyssa, you can chime in on this too, but like having the blocks essentially be sort of open source as well. So if it were, again, ever actually developed, people could develop their own sort of modular blocks as well to sort of fit their system.
Mhm. So I think that was kind of what brought us to the idea of a website, would just be that anyone, like with the internet, could go on the website and kind of see what the game is all about. And then I think it also starts to speak to how each individual block, like in and of itself, is just a simple little thing, like whether it's just a tomato patch or it gets more complex if it's like a donation shelf or whatever it may be. But each of those pieces could presumably be kind of taken initiative by a community member to kind of have this block, like have a market tent or have whatever it may be. But as they kind of come together, they make this bigger system. And then that bigger system starts to generate bigger benefits for kind of the entire community. And so it's kind of like getting you thinking about these little parts that you could do yourself, but then also how the community can come together to kind of implement them on an urban scale. And then once you have that established on an urban scale, then you kind of have the support that you need to go even more integrated, or maybe it's about these little community center hubs that you can have. So I think that was kind of the intent of the engagement, is like anyone can play and get this understanding, but we would be presenting it as opposed to having people actually go through the game.
I guess a question that arises from that is that if given that some player that has no knowledge of this plays this and gains this knowledge, what would be their course of action? Like what do you think that they can do like after playing this game and go like, yeah, this is a problem, and then like what do you like envision those players would end up doing?
I think hopefully they would see the opportunity of what more integrated and local food systems can do and some of the benefits they can have. So they might be more inclined to take initiative and implement some of these kind of blocks in their own community. Or as Simon kind of mentioned, having this understanding of food insecurity is more than just like lack of healthy food. It's kind of this bigger thing, and just understanding this bigger context and these bigger relationships at play. I think just that understanding, and then thinking of it in terms of systems thinking, it's kind of like a different way of viewing the topic.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think the thing that I find really exciting and good and great is like it's almost cliche to want to make a community garden. So like I could see the audience being someone that wants to make a community garden. And so like they would come across your project, your website, and they would understand that a community garden, and well, on its own it can be a good idea. It's tied into like this larger, it's a systems idea. It's tied into this larger system. And then suddenly the community garden, as an audience, the person that wants a community garden realizes how much bigger of a possibility that desire can be about, which I think that's the part that's super exciting. Like I really like that, like this kind of piece of architecture, which is super cool, starts over here. And so it's like, I don't like the way this is framed. Like you don't get to the kind of like cool architecture until you do this stuff here. And so like, I feel like in terms of when it comes to food insecurity and like food concepts and like food spatial concepts, you have multiple audiences. You have the person that wants the community garden. You have the person that wants like the cool like architectural piece. You have the person that wants to do like the market. And those are all different, audiences that have a similar ambition, and then they can see how they're a part of this overall process and system. So to me, that's the audience. And so it's not just like not just a guide to start a community garden. It's a guide to understand how that's part of a bigger process system to kind of negotiate food insecurity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's less about the kind of specifics of it.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily about arming people with the knowledge of, okay, this is how I build like a raised planter to go do this and that.
Exactly.
And it's more of like Mike and Alyssa both said, kind of developing hopefully a little bit of a better understanding of the systems that are at play, and then hopefully that just kind of starts to marinate in their mind and kind of allow them to sort of think of other possibilities and systems that are going to be affected by sort of their determination to go and create, say, a community garden or a pop-up market.
So I think the structure is really super strong. I think in addition to kind of just focusing on the idea of the game trailer, would it be possible to think about like at each level, or not each level, level 2 in particular, it seems like, maybe level 3, like a different scenario? So I look at, and it kind of reminds me, like I go back to like Alyssa's conception of the idea of like the easement. Like, is there a scenario that you'd run through where this is like the chosen site?
Not in a week and a half.
Okay.
That's the constraint. I know, because we were looking at that, that community cafe article that you had posted, and that one was super intriguing too. So that was kind of we actually had the grocery store and like a community cafe component as like another scenario. But then we had to pare it down to hit all 3 levels.
Yeah.
So I think between.
I'm glad you guys did that. So okay, let me put it back on you guys. What do you guys think you want to achieve in the next week and a half?
I think we've got a couple more blocks to potentially develop, and then I think planning out our trailer and then developing kind of the graphics for that, because some of like a lot of what we have would certainly be able to be used for that, but I think there's going to be the development of some other graphics as well, or just like different kind of screenshots at different points.
Yeah,
that will have to be kind of put together for that trailer. I think if there's an opportunity to kind of change the site on any of these, it might be phase 3, because that's probably the most preliminary, so to speak, of these kind of 3 levels.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine. I mean, you guys, honestly, it's up to you. I feel like if it's about refinement and development and getting to the trailer, I'm totally cool with that, and I support that, because it'd be nice to be able to spend all your time on kind of refining this and getting it to a level for the video, which I know is a lot of work. So,
well, and there may be the opportunity to kind of introduce some areas that are close to the grocery store. Like there are some sidewalk areas that maybe we could sort of begin to imply different scenarios through the placement of blocks and some of the trailer screenshots.
I think that's cool. Don't let that distract you. I'd rather you like. I'm happy that you chose like clarity over variety, and because I think that is super helpful in terms of understanding the scope of things. And at the same time, we can sort of understand. And you guys could even like walk through in concept, while you present this, like what would actually happen here if that becomes a kind of point of conversation. Maybe it does. It would be nice to see it, but I understand. And I'd rather you focus on kind of like developing a coherent trailer and kind of just bringing the coherency and refining this so that you feel like it's telling and conveying the level of story and nuance that you want to achieve.
Right.
And then I think the website too, we haven't started that at all in terms of like how are we going to do it and organizing all of that. And then the prototype, which is going to be the game board, like basically these views that you're seeing with the blocks in place that we've kind of used. And that will just be something that someone can kind of navigate through. So that's kind of a byproduct of our development. So that one is easier to tackle. And then the discourse, we're kind of behind on that formal kind of written piece as well. So
you're not behind. You may think that you're not.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I think I have a last comment. If you're like doing the website, so the player like to play on that website, he would probably like rather like have like few iterations or like something like to trigger his thoughts and not like to start something from scratch. So it'd be like great if you have like 2 or 3 iterations that what you did here, probably what we can develop more, and then put them on a website so he can like trigger his ideas and then have like a point to start from, I guess.
Oh, okay. So are you talking about like different arrangements of blocks to show different outcomes? Yeah, that's achievable.
Yeah, which you have already. I mean, some of it,
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be helpful for somebody like to play. He got to see some concepts and then to start from.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that could almost be like, because we're envisioning sort of as like a game development website. So as you're scrolling down and maybe you see you're in level 1 or something and you get to like the systems analysis, we could probably just have a couple of images that you could just like kind of click through. And maybe there's like 1, 2, or I don't know about 3, but maybe two different kind of scenarios at least.
It's the analysis parts that take a long time. So I think we could do like visually show different scenarios and some of the different opportunity zones. So we could like show an image about the sidewalk kind of idea, but maybe not run through like the full analysis and how.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think that'd be, I mean, it's up to you guys. I feel like that'd be worthwhile.
Okay.
Just, I mean, like, because it's not like, it's a little bit of like, yes, you're designing a kind of game experience, but it's more of like you are architects. So like to understand what that is like, as a kind of vignette, I think would be nice.
Gotcha.
And we can sort of infer, you know, how you get there, but it would be, I think, a worthwhile exercise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a series of vignettes, that's a good idea. That could be, I think, pretty achievable using the blocks that we have in different configurations in different locations, and then just have like a series of vignettes as kind of inspiration, like Milad was saying. For someone playing, they would get ideas of like what kind of interventions you can do.
Right.
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense.
All right, well, I'm super excited. Do you guys have any other questions?
I don't think so. Do you have anything, Simon?
Nothing off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great job.
Cool. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to take back control of my screen.
Okay. All right. I don't know who I had next.
I can start if Tom, I don't know if he wants to start first.
Tom, you want to go?
Oh, you can go, Milad. It does say your name next.
Oh, Milad. All right. We got that's the rules. Very strict rules here.
I always go last, but not this time.
Yeah, that's probably
There
good.
you go.
Yeah.
Let me try to push this one. 1 second. I had it up here somewhere. Okay. All right. So I guess like Mike and Tom knows a little bit about the project. Like Mike more, of course, but Alyssa and Simon, just give them like a little bit like familiarized.
Yeah, go ahead.
The project. So about the topic of the gig economy. So my thesis statement would be like envisioning the inefficient suburbia that we have nowadays from the outdated American dream and how to recreate the new sets of approaches to visualize the sharing space and amenities within the neighborhood. So freeing up spaces from the existing American house or the McMansions to could be like efficiently like be used as a sharing co-working space to serve the local community. The outdated American dream, the future one. So the ideal by which each resident has the opportunity to own a car, buy a house, and have a job. Here would be like more of like a shared community concepts. So each resident will share the neighborhood public amenities within the residential block in order to free up space, as we talked about here. So the game or the scenarios will be like entering a new sharing paradigm. So caused by American, like a economy recession, let's call it. So imagine like an economic recession hit the neighborhood, or like what happened like 10 years ago in Detroit, especially. So that would be like disruptive, transformative, and would be detrimental also to the landscape. And then how do we kind of like deal with it? How do we kind of like find a solution for this? So the game, the vision in the future would be how people understand their upcoming crises and the activities, and will be like eventually the intervention, which is like the new environment, and how do we like work to like achieve that goal. So the game would be, so I can have like develop like few scenarios, and the player would be like picking like 2, 3, 4 scenarios in a neighborhood. And then we can like play each scenario and then overlay on top of each other. And then we see like what the final outcome would be like. So pick up an envelope, pick up a card, read the scenario, play it, and then rethink the neighborhood, and then enjoy, of course.
Yeah, you gotta change. I saw this the other day. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you have to change cheese. You have to change cheese to choose.
Yeah.
Yeah, scenarios with the options to cheese.
Oh,
You gotta choose.
yeah, I see. Oh, sorry.
You're cool, man. It's
Okay.
just,
Yeah. So introduction would be like in this.
I meant to say it the other day, but I didn't say it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you should have told me. It's fine. So in this game, the participants will be engaging by envisioning the future of the typical American dream and picking multiple scenarios that we talked and then with options to choose from. So
Right.
that's what I'm already did. So what the existing neighborhood is, we can see like it's kind of like a linear and each house like facing a street or like a sub street. That's a typical American neighborhood or residential block. So this is kind of like shows like the distance between like right now from work to live. It's about like 25 minutes, 0.4 for average American. And we can see like the private, semi-private, semi-public, public spaces. It goes by 1, 8, 14, 20 miles. So this is like too far for some people to go like to a gym or community center or like a library or like a daycare. So the future envision will be like this amount of time will be lessened to like 2-3 minutes. And then we'll have like distances and instead of like 20 miles will be like 1, 3, 6 miles, the maximum for the private, semi-private, and then public. So the goals are to share your neighborhood, you enhance the economy sharing concept, you self-sustain the neighborhood within the broader network, and social stability, of course, which is what we're missing. So the participants in order like to participate, they have like to imagine or rethink the recession first, and then pick a scenario as we talked and rethink it, and then explore, and then overlay, and then connect the neighborhood blocks, and then produce a unique block for each game. Let's call it. So the scenarios or constituencies will be that's the existing neighborhood right now. That's what we have. It's been like for 100 years almost. Never changed. Well, I mean, it was changed probably like slightly, but not like a major. So we can envision like a single mom lost her job, elderly couple, social isolation. They cannot drive, they cannot go anywhere, but they have money, let's say. Vacant house, need co-working sharing space. People lost their jobs because of the recession. Power grid is falling apart. We gotta like upgrade it. School closed, so we need home school. Federal government was affected by the economy recession again. So that's the main topic, the recession, and then these are branched off of the main topic. So cannot afford mortgage. That's one of the concepts. We're gonna like walk through these quickly. Some stats about the American average median household, 28. That's in Detroit area, so that's where we're experiencing our gain. So 43,000 median property value. 1/3 population is employed. 1,500 is the property taxes. Partnership over like 46% of the houses, and then 25.3 is the commute time average one. So the idea is like you play, you relate the neighborhoods with each other, you participate in the game, you explore more options and select from, you rethink the neighborhood, you engage people and engage yourself in thinking, and then envision, interact, and then connect. So using like this one, this is me, of course. So using this one as like public hub, Uber, try and engage the public. So show them my atlas, show them my upper like in the ceiling of the car. So having each one has a concept. Each one was saying about like the neighborhood. One talk about like the mobile shared concept. Mobile home has a shared concept, so kind of like talking about his experience. The other one was talking about like engaging environment, the downsides of it. So how do we like can see that, or how we can like pass this. The other one was talking about the sustainability, shared energy. We can have like a shared sources within the neighborhood, the community. Solar panel, water harvesting could work. Other one was talking about like the shared courtyard. So we have courtyard. We don't have like to have a courtyard for every single house, and it will be like useless as it is right now. We can have one courtyard for 4 houses, and it will be like sufficient, for people. Will be like an efficient also. Other person said about the garage use. She said we have a garage. I mean, it was meant to be like for cars, but it's like 90% is never used for cars. They use like for storage. Some people use it like for kitchen, but they don't use it for cars. So it was not like, it's not used like as like for the intended use, was meant to be. let's say. So shared amenities, village concept, walking distance. We talked about this also, somebody mentioned that. So here I developed like, I'm just gonna walk like through this like quickly because I talked to Mike and stuff about it. So that's existing neighborhood, let's envision that. And then we have families here, each family is different. And then what we have the needs and how we like see the existing and then proposed. How do we like connect the neighborhood, have courtyards, and then how these semi-private courtyards could like engage and could like recreate or revitalize the neighborhood. So this is one concept. This is another concept. So this is more like building townhouses here for these people and turning their houses into apartments and have like a little like a kitchenette, laundry shared within the community. So by freeing up your space and then building only the essential needs, which is the bedroom and the bathroom, and then freeing up the shared, which is the kitchenette and the laundry and other spaces activities. So here's a similar concept by different iteration. So change the house into condominiums and then have the garage as different use as a shared co-working space, because economy recession, people will be left out of work so they can work from their houses, and then they can divide their house and then lease it or rent it to other person so they can make money, work in the house, and then get in the rent from other person. Similar concepts here. We talking about here also like a concept and how we like make envision like the community or like in different like variation of that, having the apartments, the offices, the shops, the library, the laundry, the daycare. So we can see that in more details at the bottom. I'm gonna walk through also quickly through this. This is I looked at the like private, semi-private, and semi-public and public. So within the same neighborhood. Right now we only have like a private. You have your house, and the back of the house or like the courtyard in the back is basically private and pretty much is useless. So we can see like we could have like a layer of semi-private and could have like a fence, could have like a semi-public, could have like a public on both sides. So different iteration of this, and then how we can like, this is existing neighborhood, how we can have like units here, and then we can have like a final look of the unit, of the neighborhood. On the house scale, your garage could be turned into like a co-work space because you don't use a car anymore. You're living in the same neighborhood. You can use a car, but not like as intense as it is right now. So in the future, you can go like free up space here. You can move, live here, break this one down to 2, and then have like a gym maybe, or a library or daycare, and then have like 2 units. So you see, useless space here turn out to be like more interactive and effective to the community, and have like 2-3 families living here instead of like 1 family, and then have a useless space. So similar concept here, we can like change it to co-working space, daycare and stuff. Here also, we can see 25% of the essential spaces are, which is the bedroom, bathroom, and then 75% of the accessory spaces, which are kitchenette, laundry, lobby, dining, garage, living, could be shared within the community. But these are the essential, could be like remain private. So here, just quickly, we'll look at the existing neighborhood, the courtyards, how we create like the semi-private, and then the public or private one, and how we're gonna turn out to be like more like shops, have like a walkways and a path, and then shaded area, community gathering, shared resources for energy, and then co-working space, have like multiple like units, blocks, and people can go there and then work. So now we're gonna come like to the final of this. So my envision for the neighborhood, again, there's a neighborhood here, have like 5 or like 8 units. So how do we can rethink this? So imagine again, like a recession hit. So people, a scenario is like a single mom lost her job. So what's she gonna do? She doesn't have like somebody or like a revenue. She can, so what can do like phase 1 can turn her house into a pretty much like a daycare space. So it can serve all the community or like all the kids in the units. So get paid from these people, and then she can run her house or pay the mortgage. Phase 2 can be like this one and grow more and have like the other, addition, let's call it, be built to the house in this useless space, and then have like more connection to the neighborhood, bring like people probably from another like neighbor block, let's call it, or something. So the third phase would be like creating the building or like some sort like a shared daycare. So probably other moms could work in it. Probably another mom here would be can work with this mom, be assistant. So, and then we have like the pathways to connect all the houses in the block and then all the neighborhoods also. So another concept would be like elderly couple can drive. Social isolation, we know like how these people will be like left out. Their kids are moved, different state, different, they work somewhere far, so they're kind of like left alone, so they have like the social isolation. So how do we like reconnect these elderly people? So we have in this game, or in this scenario, we have like 2 houses, elderly couple, and then here on the same side here. So they can, phase 1, they can like have a shared space. They can share the space with a couple, so the couple can entertain them, while the couple will be benefited from the elderly people living in their house for free. So, and the second phase will be like having like a small like community outdoor shared space. So they don't have to go out because they cannot drive, as we said here. So have a place, bring the place to them and to the community. And then the other phase would be like creating like shops and stuff like so that we can connect them so they don't have to go like to grocery or stuff like that. So these are different narrations. So the scenarios are, so what I envisioned so far, the single mom lost her job, the elderly couple, or like you cannot afford mortgage, elderly couple cannot drive, social isolation, the vacant house. So let's pick one. Let's like pick the vacant house. So I think I have it. Yeah, let's pick like the afford mortgage, can afford it. So what do? Just gonna walk you through one so you have an idea about the others. So you divide it into units, or you turn it into sharing space, or you leave it. Well, you don't want to do that because the goal is to stay in neighborhood. So turn it into sharing space could be gym, office, daycare, and or divide into apartments, condos, or studios. So the fourth step would be turning the office space into like half of the house to be an office, let's say. Person like lost his job, and then we want to like make money and then pay mortgage, so we can work in this shared space with others. Daycare could be resident, like have like a place to put their kids in, could be like close to them. So these kind of concepts what I'm looking for. The daycare could be close to them, so that's why people, they don't want to like spend half an hour to go somewhere else and then drop their kids to the daycare. You have it in your neighborhood, so why would you go? So these are like digital version of these. And then, so the selection, you have a scenario all like grayed out, and then you put the color means like you're selecting this path. So step 1, step 2, you share your house. Step 3 is the addition. Step 4 is the bolt. You can go like different route and have like different neighborhood or block. So same thing here, divide condos, bolt shops. So I run this scenario and I have the results. So that's the existing block, it's empty. And so the scenarios are here. So we can see, I want to have them all on one page so we can see all together. So can I afford mortgage? What you're gonna do, as we talked about previously, you're gonna turn your house into units, residential units. Could be condos, could be apartments. So that's phase 1 pretty much. You turn it, not all of them will be affected at the same time. They will be affected eventually, so we'll do it in phases. Then you can build like units here, and then have like connection, pathways, could be shaded area, could be sidewalks, could be anything. In the back here, which is like the useless space, which is not used right now, this one. So that was phase 1 for the can't afford mortgage. The other concept or the scenario is elderly people cannot drive. So as we said, we can connect community centers and stuff, and then share their houses with the couple, and then have like the shops here connecting the whole neighborhood as like one cohesive unit. So this is the second scenario. The third scenario could be a daycare. So we see this house was hit with the economy, has a single mom, cannot afford mortgage or cannot like pay her bills. So we can build a daycare, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 as we talked, and then have like the connection or the pathway or walkways to the whole community and how to connect to. So this is phase 1, phase 1, phase 1. Other scenario could run is have the vacant house. So the vacant house, you cannot like, let's say if you have like a missing tooth, in a neighborhood, that will create like, I don't want to say like a drug dealer place or like some sort of like that, but it won't be like appealing place in the neighborhood, and people will be like walking away from it. You see something bad, you envision the whole neighborhood is bad. So try and build like around it, but like a community center connection with each other, even like through the neighborhood or throughout like outside the neighborhood with different blocks. So co-sharing space also same. Well, all these scenarios are running through a story here. So I have it run, you select, and then you run and pick up I'm gonna show you like your route. So co-sharing space also, like again, it can be like a session here, and then you have like co-sharing spaces and have like connection, direction in all the community. So all will be participating in it. So overlay all these together. So this could happen like in 20 years, each one 5 years or something could be overlapping. So how would the neighborhood would look like? That's the first iteration. So you see the daycare, you see the co-sharing spaces, you see the elderly people community centers, you see the shops, you see the units for residential, which is the cyan color. So we see all these. I try keep like a main like alley or like pathway for like a pedestrian, for like cyclists, for like just to reactivate the space. So we can see here by building this building, it kind of by itself creates like a courtyard concept. So we can have like one main center here for these like 6 houses. We can have like one main center here for these 6 houses. We can have like small semi-private, semi-public, as we talked in the beginning of the presentation. So we can have like small semi-private for each house. Here, 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 and then one main one. So that could be phase 2 on 2050. Phase 3 could be like more developed or more like improved. So similar to this, but we're gonna have like could be like a walkways, connect these. You can like give a feeling for a person. If you give him a route, probably he'll go, he'll go onto that route. If you don't build anything, pavement or like shade or like even, columns or something, a pattern on the floor. So it gives them like the direction to go to. So we can see like the courtyards trying like to show up and the semi-private spaces here where the houses are. And the main courtyard here for the 2 centers you have, the shops, and then the units. So that was phase 3, 2080. Yeah, and now we have like 2. I don't know if I'd be like
a lot. It just keeps going.
Yeah, this is the last one would be. So yeah, so the impact will be the impact on the adjacent residential or like kind of like the urban scale. So what this will be impact the whole neighborhood block. We can see this house after being built after 20 years. How we're gonna impact like each, surrounding a block. And so we can see the place or like the blocks are closer to the main block are more affected than the one, on the other side. We can see these are more affected. Doesn't have to be the same. You can see like different layout or configuration could take, but having the concept of like the daycare could trigger another daycare here, could trigger another like co-sharing space because you have a co-sharing space here. So these pathways is not meant to be like a pattern on the floor, but it's meant to be like inspiration for others to get inspired or like to get affected by and to get impacted by, let's say. And so other neighborhoods could take part of this block and be like an inspiration for the whole thing. So that was like phase 4 could be.
This 2090?
I don't know. This is 2080. That one is like 2200 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So overall, any comments, guys, or want me to go over the company? Go on. I don't feel it.
I dubbed Milad as a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
That's your name.
Presentation. Yeah, you know the project.
Right, and I'm absolutely invested in it since 2 weeks ago, and I absolutely love it. But I still need to ask you, maybe as a extension or extension of last 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
How do you envision presenting this, and what medium are you going to use?
Yeah,
I'll add to that question. Great question. Thank you, Tom. How are you going to do that? You being concise.
Okay. Well, how many minutes do I have for the final? Is it 10 minutes?
Well, it's not about time. It's just about like
what medium,
clarity. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think is the best way to present this? I think that's the question that we should be asking.
Yeah, sure. Just want to answer to my question first. These are sketches, how like I got the idea, Mike, but probably for the final, I'm not going to show these. So just going to show like the final and then, the main concept from the top here, the story telling. And that's what it's going to be, I guess. But going back to your question, Tom, the media is saying, so each one will be So you're talking like talking about the video, or talking about the engaging media, or what are you talking about exactly?
No, just like you, Milad, you're going to be presenting this.
Yes.
How are you going to do that in a way that's let's say I limited you to 5 minutes.
Okay.
Right, and I don't know. That was probably 20 minutes.
Okay.
So we'll have 5 to 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So
So
you didn't even mention the gig economy, which I think is sort of important as a setup for this. Which I understand. Like, you don't need to talk about that now, but like in terms of you have a lot of great content and thoughts.
Mhm.
I think you'll also want to talk about the idea of where you began, in 30 seconds.
yeah, right. Well, we talk about like the gig economy.
The gig economy, yeah, right.
Yeah, well, I mean, the main scenario, main topic is about like the economy recession, and just kind of like ties back to that, and how we can have like a shared economy. Gig economy means like a shared economy, and shared economy means like shared community. But probably I'll have like a little introduction to that, maybe for the gig economy, of course.
I think, Milad, you and I will have to work together to. I feel, 'cause I want you to get great feedback for the review, and so I think there's a lot that I already understand, right? So like obviously we just talked about this on Tuesday, so I sort of like understand everything and where you're going. But if I was to look at this for the first time, I'd be like, holy shit, this guy's crazy. So and that's great. It's awesome to be crazy, but at the same time, I'll have to work with you. We'll need to work together to make it concise and clear.
Okay.
Right. Milad, if it helps you, the example of like what the question that I asked you and the answer example, it would be like, in my case, which we'll see, is that like my presentation is probably just going to be like, just play my game. Like click on this executable and then just play it. Like that's kind of like the thing that I'll do, like, or I'm aiming to do. And like what's the and that would be like the medium of or the catalyst of what I want to say is through that medium. And that was like the question that I had for you, is that like what I'm not asking you what do you want to use, but rather what do you think the best media is?
Yeah, or as
for the project that you're working for.
Yeah, what I mentioned previously here, I'm gonna like develop each scenario in like a card and put them in like a envelope or like a folder, let's say, and then doing like my Uber engagement platform, and then have people like pulling up like cards. Probably they can pull like 2 cards, and then they circle what they want. They pick like the route they want to go, and then we can like develop the neighborhood based on that route. So each scenario, each like route will like lead to like a unique solution as this. So another route could like lead you like something else. Would be like you're having like residential or have like any community space. Probably can have like totally like different neighborhood. So based on what you pick from these cards, what you select is gonna be your game.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you guys? I get it because Milad and I talked about it.
Yeah,
I think that actually makes sense. That it's kind of like halfway to a card game. Like something like that makes a lot of sense. I guess another question that I have is that how did you engage the people? As in, when you're Ubering, I highly doubt that you actually have the time to explain all this.
Well,
right?
That it's a lot.
Well, this is the proof.
If my driver is like spouting these out.
What are you talking about? Of course, he explains everything.
Well, this is it. You can see me in the picture, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And And when you hit these people with this stuff, like what's their reaction? Like I'm very intrigued about.
I see what you're saying. Well, you see, like these are like 9 people or something.
Right.
9 out of like 30 people I talk to, they respond to me. So some of them say like, well, like, what are you talking about? I mean, are you Uber?
Right.
Studying or like doing research?
Yeah.
and then
in that process of asking.
Yeah. So
right?
this. I mean, even like somebody like give me like a 0 rating or something, about
Oh,
this.
what? Really? Yeah. Oh, they just didn't get it, man. They didn't get you.
I cannot believe you're a student like Uber, doing research in Uber, so somebody didn't get it. But other people, like these people, they were like more helpful. I think like more young, generation, they were like more understanding because some of them were like really student. So, but not all. Like this lady was like very talkative, so she gave me like too many information. I was just like wanting to drop her off. I mean, full of information, that's it. But it was like for like 20 miles of a ride, which is great. This person was nice. This one gave me some information about like the shared mobile homes as we talked. This person is so funny. I'm hanging this one in the ceiling, and then the tape, it fell on his head. He was taking a phone and said, "What?" So something his head. So what's going on? So it fell, and I got like risk it again. So that was funny. He was a funny guy. He gave some information also about this. They were like interested about like the small sketches here more than the atlas because the atlas has too many information.
Right. Yep.
But like small sketches, I figured out like after like a day or two, they're like more interactive with that, like these things. So some of them like they give me like a cold shoulder. Some of them like were like more engaging, but like let's say 1 hour, like a 1/3 maybe they were the responsive ones, or But if you don't believe it, I can give you the screenshots of my Uber app.
Oh, this is great. This is
okay.
Freaking amazing.
Yeah. It was kind of tough. Also, like it consumes time.
Right.
Sure.
And
I think money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was money. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Right. And I think there's actually a lot of hints in this. Is that like how do we increase the number of people that understood it? Right. Yeah. So like I think that's something that like perhaps needs a little bit more refinement.
Yeah, which also like kind of what I did when I showed them this one, and then they kind of like were lost. So I figured I gotta show them like small sketches, and probably could be like a third phase, be like more clear about it. But I figured out like small handouts will be like a lot easier for them to read like in 5 minutes ride or 10 minutes ride. It depends on the distance. To get an idea about like what they're thinking about. Sometimes you have only like 5-10 minutes, to drop somebody off. Sometimes you have like 20 minutes or something. Sometimes you have like only like 2 minutes. So it depends. I mean, I like initiate the conversation with like people I feel comfortable with. Some people are like angry all the time and like I don't feel like yelling and stuff. So I don't, I just like hold back, a little bit. But I was like kind of like diplomatic in this, how to like approach it. But I got like good feedback from like almost like 10 people maybe or something. I got more than these. I mean, going like from this to the small sketches and probably will be like improved. It's a time-consuming process. But it's great because like you engage in public and then have each people like a person experience as we're doing right now. We have like 4 people. I got the feedback from 10 or more. So you get an idea like you're brainstorming things, and
Can I chime in at a high level? Just to kind of like step back. So I haven't seen this project in a really long time. So it's very thorough. And so, great job on that, on the research, on the engagement, on like the thoroughness, on the analysis. Like there's so much strength in here, but there's just too much of it that you can't like focus on it and get it. You kind of get distracted by some other pieces. So I guess I don't have the answer to that, but from some of the points that I gathered or that really stood out to me as you were going through this was I didn't fully understand like why the crisis happened, but I guess my preconception of the gig economy was that it's about the sharing economy. So you almost could frame this whole thing about like the gig economy has created a shift in values, and that shift in values now values sharing, and like that's the premise of this. And so now we're looking at sharing urban space, or reinterpreting, re-understanding the urban environment based on this concept of sharing. Like it could just be kind of about that. And then I think what's really intriguing about all of your work is this kind of programming exercise that's kind of happening, or this pattern of arrangements. And I think all these patterns you're coming up with are like really, really interesting. So I'm wondering if there's a way to make it less prescriptive, like if the paths are less like here's what you have to do, and like but it's more open-ended diagramming or bubble diagramming or programming. But I think it's really strong how you're kind of looking at inner suburban communities. So you've taken this suburban landscape of housing and backyards, and you're kind of reinterpreting that, or you're coming up with a new community within that suburban area. But I think what's really important to address is like, just because it's someone's backyard doesn't mean it's useless space. Like there's value associated with that for some people. So I think it's important to touch on there's a shift in value. So we have to start thinking differently about how having that private green space is less valuable in this new future, and it's more valuable to have these sharing spaces. So I wonder if there's more flexible scenarios, I guess, and maybe less of them, like just maybe 3 clear scenarios. And then there's program that maybe goes with that, or maybe the player can come up with the program. But I think the color coding and the patterns that come out of that are really important. So I almost wonder if you could use like Lego or something where there's different colors, there's different program, and people can like stack them and arrange them and combine their board with the person next to them's board. And then you like kind of generate this whole series of different urban patterns, if that could be an exercise that's kind of simplified, but hopefully hitting all your concepts.
Yeah, that's a great point. But I want it to be like more of a like speciality more than like a diagram. So I know the
Okay.
Lego will be like it's just like a diagram, but this one you can envision more, and we can see like the speciality of like the courtyards. It's not like a final refinement, but you can see like these spaces, and then created, by these buildings. So I see what you're saying. It could be done also. It could be done. I mean, don't get me wrong, but looking more into like a 3D-dimensional spatiality. Yeah, more like a diagram, because that one like would be like a schematic like diagram. I want to put this color coded. This is also could be like color coded, which it is right now, color coded. Yeah. But probably the business of it maybe run 2 scenarios in each neighborhood, or probably not like 5 or 6. You're right. Yeah, I see that point. Yeah.
Yeah, Malad, can I chime in for just
Sure.
Again, coming at it with a set of fresh eyes. I haven't seen it in quite a while.
Yeah.
I was actually, the first question I was going to ask is, what's your overall Uber rating?
It's
pretty high.
Yeah, 4.6.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, 4.6. Yeah. I got like 10, 5, and then 111 for 431. So it's 4.6. Used to be like medium, now it's high.
Gotcha. It's good that those people who gave you a 0 aren't dragging it down, because that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think overall the project's really interesting, and in terms of kind of looking at repurposing suburbia to kind of reflect these changing values that center more around like a shared economy, which I think is on the horizon. I mean, we see it with like Airbnb and companies like that. Right. And I think your kind of different scenario graphics are pretty evocative, just in terms of kind of envisioning the transformation from like your typical, half acre or acre lots or whatever, into sort of this, I don't know if I want to say downtown space, but just something that's more dense and kind of interesting. And the axes are pretty interesting too. I think in your overall like final graphic from the year 2200 or whatever it ends up being, my question maybe how arbitrary they are and how kind of worked out they are, but that's kind of besides the point. But I think for me, the one thing was just like Alyssa said, there's a lot of information on it, and it's all really great information. But just in terms of how to kind of synthesize that down, like, because I kept looking for kind of the game and I wasn't sure if that was like the game was kind of what you did with the Uber riders, and now it's sort of synthesizing the results of that. But then, because it sounded kind of like it was going to be a card game or something like that, so just sort of in figuring out how to present it, and I wonder if it's like, because then you mentioned kind of picking up these cards and choosing your sort of path with each of these scenarios.
Right.
So I wonder if it's relatively simple to develop kind of a multitude of sort of layouts for each scenario. And so okay, if I'm a single mom who lost her job, it's like, and I go down that daycare route, and then there's a couple different sort of, like, you end with the same result, but your built environment is a little different. Like the daycare's there, or the daycare's there, or the daycare's over here, something like that. And do that potentially for each scenario. And then I wonder if it's a way of like, kind of interactively, you choose your scenario, and then so that kind of built element pops up, and somebody else has another card and they go to a scenario, and then it's like a version of that scenario pops up. And so it's like every time you combine all these different scenarios, you get a slightly different sort of repurposed Suburbia layout.
Yeah.
And then that would be sort of a basis for further conversation about like what else could happen. So you would sort of propose these, I don't know, 12, 16, or 20 different sort of relatively simple different layouts. And then that's kind of the basis for like, oh, well, then this could also happen, and then this could happen, and this is how it could impact that other block, and so on and so forth. So I wonder if that's maybe a way to kind of wrap a lot of this together within the next week and a half.
Yes. I'm kind of like being like more, too extreme here. I know I'm too busy and stuff, but yeah.
It's not too busy or too extreme.
It's not too busy at all.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
like your strongest graphic, like what Simon
Correct.
said. It's
Correct.
so inspirational, like that.
Yeah.
That is the whole project in a nutshell. It's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't change
it's a
that.
beautiful drawing, and what's beautiful is that you're able to back up how you got there, right? It's not just capricious, like, I drew these things. Like, you actually unpack the whole thing, and we understand how you arrived there. So, like, just to make that clear, don't make this less busy.
Okay. Yeah, each one like that is back to the original scenario. Each scenario,
Exactly.
the text here, what you picked based on the play that the game that you played. But one more thing I was thinking, Simon, about like from each neighborhood, what I like learned from it. I have like conclusion for each one, or what are like benefits to the neighborhood. Probably I can like write down like in text or something. So probably I can run these out probably like for 2-3 different neighborhoods, and then have like 3-4 like blocks, and have like what the benefits, or like what are the what we get from that game,
Right.
stuff like this. So yeah, I gotta achieve that also. That's what I was thinking about from each block.
Gotcha.
Eventually for this block, this is it's about like the randomly and not randomly. So we're talking about like how this one will impact the surrounding ones. But it could be like I was thinking about like more random than like systematic, or like a rhythm to do it. But I gotta like probably envision like in a like more like than residential. So probably you can have like a shop center here, or you can have like a school, let's say, or could we have like a Walmart here? We could have like something else. So that would be like too far, I know.
No.
But yeah.
Walmart's not part of the future, Milad. 2100.
Yeah.
It's going to
Walmart's
be the
gone.
for Walmart. Everything. Walmart's just going to be a series of like trucks on the move all the time.
Yeah.
Mad Max style.
I meant like shopping stores or stuff like
Sure,
that.
no, I got you.
Yeah.
Maybe in United Corporation of America 2200. Maybe.
Right. Yeah, Milad, one of my thoughts when you showed this graphic was like it's the central neighborhood's really interesting, and kind of how it's spreading to other neighborhoods. But my question was, what's stopping the other neighborhoods from doing the same thing? It's like, is there a way to like, as people play through different scenarios, a group of people would be influencing one neighborhood, and then another group is like the next neighborhood. You can almost have 9 different like groups of people playing through, and each one is kind of coming up with a different neighborhood scenario, and then the interrelationships form or something like that. And maybe that's really like too far down the road to get.
Well, yeah, I mean it is, but it's not. What I'm thinking about, like each neighborhood will have like different result because the players, as you were saying, like 9 players or 9 blocks, each one has different needs, and each like house have like different let's say like a varying factors maybe, or like so let's say like if like daycare here and daycare here, so this will be like a single mom, this could be like a single mom like with 3 kids, and this is like with 1 kid, so it could be like 2 different scenarios, but the same constituency, but different scenario gonna run to. The 3 people, she has like 1 gotta go like to school, so 1 gotta be in the daycare, and 1 gotta be like working in the community center. Here only have like 1 like infant can stay with her, So same single mom daycare scenario could have like different routes if like the kids are like 3 or 4, other than like 1 kid she has here, and so on for others. So yeah, so different scenario for the same constituency could lead like to different story for that neighborhood, and each single scenario would impact the neighborhood in one way or the other.
See, that's why I think you explained the similar thing 2 weeks ago, and that's why I'm still like advocating that this should be like a puzzle game. That scenario 1. You are a single mother. You live in plot B. As a designer, you give the players tools to solve this scenario, if that makes sense. And then you just go, all right, players, go solve this. And then the players are the one that like technically ends up with something that looks like this, if that makes sense. Right.
Yeah, but you're saying the tool, like something like the tool you mean, because the tool here is the card, and then they select their route based on this. I want to give them something like to start from, because they're not gonna, people like will be like just staring at me. What do you want me to do? So yeah,
that's why.
Because I face these people when I'm doing Uber. So I say, okay, so what do you want me to say? So some people like they were saying like this, but other were like trigger or like started initiating like a conversation. They were like kind of like provocative and stuff. But I gotta show them something so they can start from. So that's what But the tools, what you meant probably. Go ahead if you want to say something about tools specifically, or have an idea.
Tools as in like you can construct a road, you can construct new space, you can start doing what you've explained, and then give the players the power to do it, as opposed to kind of like being this prescriptive, like top down, I don't know what to call it, tree
like
of actions.
Don't limit them to like certain options. Keep it open.
Right. Yeah. It's you just give them the scenario of what you're starting with, and then allow players to be the creative ones.
Okay.
Because each person is probably going to end up with different solution to each scenario.
Yeah.
And I think that could be the most important and possibly the most intriguing part of this game, is that to see how people like understand space by their solution.
Right, that's a great point.
You give them an empty slate of scenario, like single mom lost your job. You need to create a space that helps you, and then you just push that over to the writer, and then go like solve this scenario.
Yeah, what I was thinking.
By the end of your Uber, they return it back to you, and you take a look at it, and then pretty much grade it.
I see. I was thinking also about like paying them like $5 in order to do that.
If you do that, the best part is that you don't have to explain any of this.
Oh yeah, they do it anyway, right?
Okay, no, it's important that people know about this, but you don't have to let them know the high concept behind it.
Yeah. So what I was thinking is like having like another route and keep it like empty, so they can write down their route the way they want to go if they don't want to follow these.
Okay.
That could help
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
That,
Like
that might not
Yeah.
be bad either. That like here's so you just give them the scenario and then like what is your action?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then like make them fill them out or something.
Well, and so but in some ways, like I feel like the premise of the game, of course, is to arrive at this a shared environment. And so all of these are kind of like a kind of preface or a kind of like a suggestion that would potentially lead to that shared environment. And so I would say the structure of the game is about how you potentially knit together a highly individualized and compartmentalized environment, suburbia.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so this is like each of the scenarios is a means to connect. And so I feel like I understand what you're saying, Tom. If it was open-ended, it would potentially it would be interesting, but it wouldn't arrive at the idea of which is an idea that I accept, or I think it's a premise we accept that in order for suburbia to survive, the kind of gig economy and the sharing economy, which are like, we shouldn't accept unquestionably, like these things are going to have positive and negative effects. But if like part of the premise, the way I understand it, of what Malad is doing is like to be anticipatory about how these economic regimes will transform our environment, and to create a framework to anticipate that.
Okay.
Like all the work is about that. It's like, and part of the premise is like the American dream, of course, was like totally kind of dissolved and disrupted, and particularly in Detroit, and kind of destroyed by post-industrialization. So what's the version of that for the kind of the rest of the metropolis and kind of suburban landscape for this new economic regime?
Okay.
And so the premise of all of this is like sharing is the answer in some way, but sharing is more, it's like that on itself is a kind of overly idealistic and kind of utopic kind of conception of like a response. So how does that process of negotiation happen? So these are all setups to create this negotiation. And so I think as part of like the scenarios that are played, each person, it's really a negotiation with the people around them. So like if each of the steps is about, okay, you have this issue, you have to negotiate with your neighborhood in some way to achieve some result. And through that process of negotiation, there's a synergy, a synthesis that's produced that brings you together, that also resolves your problem. And so I think, and then so like to look at the single mom, like each of the steps are kind of should be understood through that lens. So we can look at them, and some of them maybe are, and some maybe aren't. But to give it coherency, to me, the idea, and the strength of the idea is it's about each of these steps is a potential crisis that requires a commitment towards kind of negotiating and creating a relationship with those around you. And in doing so, you also like disregard the traditional set of values about like each having your own kind of compartmentalized half acre or whatever it is, and it's all like the same type of space. And those things go out the window. When they go out the window, you produce this kind of incredibly rich urban kind of fabric that's not been, we've not seen before.
Mm-hmm.
I also think maybe
so I think there's some guidance that's needed, because if it's just open-ended, then like, for instance, part of what I challenge them a lot is like, well, the goal of the game is that you stay in the neighborhood. So if you lose your job, yeah, you have the option to leave. You have the option to leave, right? But then the game, you lost because you left. The neighborhood's gone.
Yep. That's why it stops here.
That's why I stopped, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Got it. Yeah. I understand that now. That's really important. I see.
Yeah, let's say I want to say something, but I just want to mention something before I forget. So while I was like developing the neighbor or like scenarios, like single mom last job and then can afford mortgage, I kind of like saw like the inner connection between the two. So here you can see the work, the secretary, and you have like an office, co-sharing office. Here you can see like the turn into sharing space and office. So this is step kind of like interconnect with this. So building an office can serve both scenarios at the same time.
Right.
So these are interconnected
Yeah.
negotiation. So this neighborhood A, neighborhood B, they can negotiate and have an office. If somebody will pick this route, the office route, and somebody will pick this office route, or secretary and goes the office route. So this one building for the office sharing will serve both A and B residents.
That's a great segue into what I was going to say, because it keeps throwing me off that we're looking at it through these singular lenses when the whole idea is about sharing. So can you go to that image, that final image that you have? That one, not that one, the other one.
This?
That one, yeah.
2080. Yeah.
That one, yeah. So what if, like, I almost feel like it should be a group game where maybe you have one player per house, and each player gets a scenario, and they have to sit around the table or the computer or whatever it is, but like they have to collaborate together and negotiate amongst each other to figure out which spaces they can share. Like, I'm talking to this other person and we both need an office space. And so we pick this plot, and like then it starts to develop as a community, as a shared thing, and then patterns will emerge based on who's interacting with who and what kind of like layered uses we can agree upon.
Yeah, it becomes a simulation game.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which it is right now. But in this case, it will be like every resident will have like its own scenario. It has to have a scenario.
Yeah. So I can explain that pretty. I'm going to take control. Oh shit! What happened?
Right.
Give me one. Shit. I'm a request from. Okay. What's going on? Okay. Request. Damn. Okay. I mean, so I think you guys understand that. Basically, this is a compilation of each scenario run separately.
Mm-hmm.
So, Milan, what Tom's suggesting is that, like, you can't afford mortgage, so you make a decision.
Yeah.
You lost your job, you make a decision. But part of why you're making a decision is based off what the other person is doing. So that, which is sort of interesting. Yeah, I mean, part of it, so share the house is daycare. So you need, like, let's say there's 4 other players. You need to find someone that is looking for daycare. It may be the family with kids, right?
Yeah.
And here's your house. The family with kids lives here. And so, like, you turn your house into a daycare. And, like, now they have this connection to the daycare. And, like, this moment would arise out of that first step.
So show the need. And then I see. So you build a space for a need for a resident, and then you gotta like which.
No, it's just like you did.
Yes. Yeah.
The only difference is that so you make this choice, and you make this choice along with somebody else.
Okay.
And so the house share the house as a daycare. No, you really, I mean, which is sort of interesting. You can't, so the single mom can't really do that unless someone else says, I need that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's another scenario where a couple says, oh, hey, they're in a better situation because they had another kid or whatever, and like they need a daycare or whatever, or daycare is too expensive actually. Like they can't transport their kids to daycare 20 miles away or whatever it is in suburbia, right?
Yeah.
And so like they have daycare in the area. And so like that's a couple that can't afford daycare anymore. Maybe that's the crisis. And so like they come together because then the single mom can create the daycare, and it's these two couples that need that.
Yeah, and that's why we have that path.
That's why you have these two paths, right?
Connection, yeah, the connection.
Right. This couple, this family, and this family needs daycare.
Right. I see.
Mm-hmm.
So if you kept playing that board with different groups of people, you would get different pattern diagrams.
Right.
Because the different groups might start to make different decisions based on what scenarios they pull, based on who else is playing. but you could just run through one example to show it, just to like illustrate the game.
Well, yeah, in this case, I got to run like 6, 7 scenarios and put them next to each other and see like what they want to do and then what are the needs for, like, for instance, the sample that So I got to run like multiple ones. I run like these 4, but the one I made digitally, but there are like 6 right now or 5 here. So
sorry, I meant one overall scenario, but yeah.
So Milan,
Yes.
so I mean, you've come a long way. So, and we're just challenging you in a way.
Yeah.
And so I think I still have control. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So what's different about what's being suggested, which I think is shit, Jesus.
Yeah.
So the way you thought of this, which I think was a good pass, was you develop this, and then you develop that, and then you develop this, and then you develop this. The task would be actually to have all these, like, these are 4 different players, and they're playing simultaneously. So each one takes a step. So instead of doing one at a time, they all make one step. Does that make sense? And as part of that step, they're talking to each other about how that sharing happens. And so step 1 is actually red, green, orange, and blue. And that results in, something like this. I don't know. And then step 2 is the next level for each. And each step is another layer that gets built on top of each other.
So phase 2 and phase 1 and these kind of things.
Yeah. So phase 1 is actually 4 players.
Okay.
This is awesome, and it's really complex, and this is more than, it's a lot to ask, but I think it'd be worthwhile to explore that versus trying to get people to play this. You can do that for sure, but
okay,
I would develop a series of scenarios that show different iterations of these 4 players playing and how that results in this. Right? Because then you can go down this other path, and maybe one of them is failure. That's where they leave, right? That's one of the scenarios, is failure.
Yeah.
But it's the process of how each person approaches a crisis. So there's 4 players, let's say.
Yeah.
And at each step of the way, how they negotiate that crisis and produce these different configurations.
So it's like everyone takes a turn, right?
Everyone takes one turn, yeah.
Yeah.
And at each step, they have to talk to each other. And, it's not really any different than what you have. It's just a different way to get there. And it's a different way to structure that process.
Okay. I'm like brainstorming right now because
I have 100% confidence you can get there, because this is how you looked at me last time we talked about this, and you totally made it. So
yeah, I did it. Yeah. I'll make it either way. But what I'm saying, Mike, let's say step number 1 or step number 2, each one.
Yeah.
So divide the house into units, and then this one share as a daycare. So
then the daycare would go in their unit. Right? They divide their place into units. They can't afford their mortgage, so they divide their house in half, right?
Yes.
So half their house, this person, she wants to share. You need people that okay, go back to that.
Okay. Here.
All right. So single mom is trying to create a house as a daycare. This person can't afford their mortgage, so they're dividing their house into units. You could potentially say that a couple moves into there and they need a daycare. So then, single mom lost her job. She provides the daycare.
And we want to see these negotiation into a diagram as I have it. Show the.
I think so. That would be.
Show the other couple moved in here, and then how they're gonna use the daycare. This.
Right. Yes.
So in this case, for step 1, I'm gonna have a iteration. For step 2, we go further. Gonna have same this, but more advanced, or
it'll be built on the last one.
Okay. Yeah.
So instead of these being separate things that get brought together at the end, it actually be step 1, and then you would build on step 1, step 2. The step 3 will build on step 2 and 1, and so on, and then it will lead to this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because the way I'm doing it right now, each scenario is run separately all the way to the end, and
exactly. Right, exactly. But instead of that, you actually each person makes one move.
And they negotiate every single step.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. But can I do like both of them, Mike? One goes all the way to the end.
No,
I'm just saying. I mean,
no. I know how you work, and I know it'll be way too much information.
Okay.
You just have to refine it. You'll get it. Honestly, it won't probably look any different than this.
Yeah.
It'll be just a different process to get you there.
Yeah, the approach is different.
But it will be stronger, and I think Tom's and everyone else's suggestion is strong in the sense that you're doing that.
Yeah.
This was a good, obviously it's super complex. Yeah. So I think what you did was a good strategy just to for yourself to see what this could be, because it's sort of crazy. There's a lot of variables.
Test it out.
I think the next step is what they're suggesting, which is every player takes one step, and it's a process of negotiation, which you sort of intuited.
Okay.
But then you'd see each step along the way. If you could do that, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll do that. More about the negotiation interaction between the residents and the way of the process.
Yeah.
And not run it separately as I have it right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's run separately right now, but it's interconnected when you look overall.
No, we get it. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. That's great feedback.
All right, that's awesome. We should probably move on.
All right, thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Stop sharing. Tom, you want to go?
Sure.
Okay.
Now, you'll probably see some similarities between Malad's stuff and mine, but mine is perhaps too simple. Where is it? There it is. Okay. It's so I don't know where I should start technically. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So it's basically a direct response to the board game that I made on part 1 and 2. Is that at an individual level, the problem of eviction is that one, you just end up being unlucky, and that's like the start of downward spiral to eviction and homelessness. And 2, there's no real social safety net to catch you once you're in that unlucky downward spiral. So in the process of understanding that, and through talking to Mike about it, my response then became, how do I make a resilient community that the government can pick up its slack? If the government can't help you, the community should help each other if you go into that downward spiral. And 2, what is a public social space that can act as a social security net, not in the sense of Blue Shield or Blue Cross, like insurance, Geico, auto insurance, not in the sense of those insurance, but is there a more simple option that affords people some leeway and escape route towards not being able to pay rent for the next month. So that was the key idea of developing this game, is that the game design is kind of like a choose your own apartment management game. Is that a player that plays this game is a admin of a small apartment complex, and you start off with something super simple, with 1, 2, 3, 4 room, and each occupied by 4 families. That family 1, single mother and a son. Family 2, elderly retired couple living off of pension. Family 3, working college student. And family 4, foreign worker in the U.S. with temporary worker visa, or something according that line with diversity. So the game, as an admin, you want to keep these people in their space because that's your main income. But something bad happens according to the board game that I made, something in the extension of the board game that I made. So I guess each month you can purchase options, social security net options, starting off as something minor. Like the first month you can maybe get like a secure bike rack. Maybe you can just plant greenery or start to get purchase benches, and these options will act as kind of like a saving checks for upcoming scenarios. And scenarios would be something like every month one of the families will be hit with scenarios, starting off with something minor. The college student needs a car to go to his college but cannot afford rent if he wants to get a car, or the single mother needs to find daycare and it's affecting her work schedule. But because you put bike rack in, the college student can instead get a bike instead of getting a car, leading them to be able to pay rent for the next few months. Or because you planted greenery and bench and allowed a public space to grow, that these elderly pensioners became acquainted with single mother who can now take care of the kid while the single mother goes to work, and like starts like create these the small things that you're not perceiving as a social security net in the grand scheme of things is now a great social security net. And like this, you'll keep spending months, and then now you can afford like a public space, and then because you did this, now you can make a second complex to added. Now that has increased your income. Now you can make a commons with probably like an internet access, or some place for all the community to have like a banquet or something in the summer. Allow these spaces. And then in the end, now you can, with the money that you accrued, you can now create like you can lobby for a bus stop to be right next to your apartment complex, which is a great social security net for the people that has their car broken down or their car got impounded for whatever reason, giving them options. And then in the end, you can start to support like this mixed zone cafe and like a grocery store within the complex. And like this small complex starts to become a model of urban fabric. And then we start through these small changes that we make. I want the players to recognize that these small things are indeed a option or a leeway for something bad happening to you. And that community is there to help you when you're in a tight spot. And then like as a admin, like you start to facilitate these interactions, or you start to understand that in real life, these spaces are for that. And then it's kind of like an educational / like the next time you're driving through a neighborhood, when you see like a public park, you'll start to understand that that's what it's for, as opposed to just some like place that kids run around in. But in a grand scheme of things, it's something a lot more. And this is mainly inspired by Jane Jacobs' urban design, written in the Death and Life of Great American Cities that I got to read. And like this is kind of like a really good infographic that I found on the like pretty. Like I realized that like I'm like reenacting this, but I don't know how much like I wanted to say that, but that's why I'm saying it right now. But it's kind of like modeled after Jane Jacobs' book on urban design. And then in the end, I am hopefully trying to get like a game going with an executable where people get to like kind of pick and choose their choices, and then like seeing how their choices affect the people that's living in the apartment complex, and see how that goes. So
do people get to live in these places for free?
No, they're paying rent because that's your main income as the admin or the apartment complex admin. You're getting money from these from these people paying rent, but you don't exactly want to evict these people because they're your main source of income. But if they can't pay your rent, they get evicted. They have to get evicted. They leave the apartment.
Oh, I thought this was meant to help evicted people.
Oh, no. This is kind of like a simulation game of like if you're an apartment admin and there's like certain families living in these apartment, and you're the admin of the apartment complex as a player.
Okay.
And then you get to choose how to expand that apartment complex.
So how about the evicted people? Can they like take part of this, or because that was like a main topic, right? I mean, originally about the eviction. If you
This
can,
isn't exactly answering the question of what happens to evicted people, but rather a iteration or a model of trying to prevent that. What is the best prevention of homelessness is actually allowing them to be able to afford rent. So this isn't a model or a game that I'm trying to help homeless people or that I'm trying to help homelessness, but not really. It's not doing that. That's not exactly the goal. But the goal of this is to understand that through these public space designs, it allows for more options for these people that's living in these apartment complex, and starting to understand that these spaces in real life is what affects the social safety net, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Tom, I'm gonna jump in real quick. This, you said it might have been too simple. I love it. I think it's pretty awesome. I can see how the case study that you looked at definitely informed this. Yeah, I'd love to know more about like kind of different scenarios, especially as you kind of progress forward. But one of the questions I had is, so what happens if, so say you invest in something, but there's a scenario that happens and it turns out to not really be the right thing to help that family or that person stay in the apartment complex. So does somebody else move in, or is that apartment just empty and you have to kind of work on a more limited income?
As a game design, I think it's more let me reword that. Sorry. I think another problem of eviction is that there's like unlawful evictions where the house owner or the landlord can just forcibly eject people right when they miss their deadline, and then just immediately evicts them from their house. And I want those people to also be the audience, is that you can eject these people, but your income is also is gone also by doing so. And have understanding that like this is like a mutual relationship. You're supplying people with a space to live, but they're your main source of income. So you want these people in here, and that's kind of like the investment that you make. And therefore, I think I don't want this. If someone gets evicted or leaves, I don't want it to be filled up again.
Yeah.
To answer your question.
Right.
But that is because I want the landlords to also be the audience also, and make them learn condescending, but so that they could also learn that this might be like a mutual relationship, as opposed to what a lot of landlords think, that they can do whatever the heck they want, which isn't just simply not true.
Right. Is there like a so in the game, if somebody misses their rent or something, is there kind of a grace period that you
like strike 3
can choose to have?
Yeah, I was thinking about like a strike 3 system.
Okay.
Because you might not make the choice of buying, say, a bench that month, right? and then like the next month, all of a sudden you somehow needed a bench. But the next month, if within like the strike 1 or 2, you buy a bench finally, and then they get saved.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so like I was saved by the bench, but this is like the very first part of the game. But like later, it'll be like saved by the commons because they got fired and they don't have internet. But now because there's a free internet access on in the commons, they're saved. And that's kind of like the point of the game is that like there's tons of social security net options that we're always omitting because of capitalistic reasons.
Tom, I have a quick question.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, the idea is cool about like how like develop the apartment building, but what would attract me to go there? What is the medium that would like attract people to go there? Why would when I like go somewhere else?
I'm not quite sure if I understand your question, but like does it mean why people would play this game?
Yeah, why people like would choose like to go there? Is there like something, you know, outstanding or like attractive make me go there?
About this apartment?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's not necessarily in my mind.
Okay.
Maybe a different way of phrasing it is like, what's different about this arrangement than any other arrangement where this arrangement is actually more supportive? What are the specifics that make this different and make it more supportive to people in a tight spot?
So I'll jump in here. I think this is a good direction, Tom. I sort of wonder, there's certainly a version in my head where it's actually way more aggressive, where it's a transition from the admin landlord to a co-op model, and maybe something in between. And the co-op model essentially is that the tenants slowly take ownership of the building itself. And so I sort of wonder, like, how, like, part of what you can do when you're in an impoverished situation is use sweat equity to build value in your environment.
Right.
And so you personally can create the garden or build the bench. What's flawed in the landlord situation is that you don't get to benefit from the value that's increased in the land by the work that you do. Mm-hmm. And so that the sort of dichotomy or the paradox in a renter relationship is that you're not incentivized to invest in the landscape itself, the environment, your own space.
Right.
So
right. Okay.
And you're socioeconomically challenged. So you don't benefit from the increased value that is created by investing and building out aspects of the landscape. So I sort of think there could, I mean, in my mind, there's a version of this where it starts off as a kind of conventional apartment building with an admin, but slowly, actually, the people work together to buy units and actually transform it into a co-op where everyone collectively owns the entire apartment, or somewhere in between where maybe the admin moves on to the new buildings because like they're actually earning money, right? And they can actually they have the capital to build this. And then the people that live here, they own this, and then they can build all this stuff. They can invest in this.
Right. And
then there's this balance between the kind of, it's almost like a developer. Like the developer is increasing money, not just rent roll, and their ability, and they're getting capital because these places they're selling them essentially because the co-op is coming together to buy, one property after another. And then they invest in these other spaces. I sort of think that even in the Jane Jacobs world, it's a pluralistic model where it's not one or the other. And so I think I would encourage you to explore that. Like, what does it mean to turn the space over? Because then you can actually begin to look at the division of units, for instance, and like the internals of this can be entirely reworked. Because once the people own this, they can divide units however they want. Like if somebody wants to divide their own unit in half because they don't need it, and they could sell one half. Like you can change the kind of internal DNA of the building itself. You can't do that. Only the admin can do that when it's a renter relationship.
Right.
But when the co-op owns this, or the co-op governs it and each individual person or family owns it, they can, through the co-op, determine how this is organized and whether they want to sublease the space or not. They can internally govern it, and that itself is the social safety net.
Right. I think that makes sense. That like I think another a layer of information that I could add to this is passage of time. Exactly, kind of like Milad's, that like certain after certain years, or I guess 10 years, is that like you start to see these families, because of the social safety net, like start to grow, and then they're the one that starts to like make the
investment,
the groceries or grocery shop, or the investment to the commons. Okay.
So I think in order for them to do that, the model needs to be tweaked. Like there needs to be incentive to do that, right? Because it's a rentership model, they have no incentive to do it.
Right. It's pretty top down. Yeah.
So I sort of like the idea of starting with the admin, but as part of the game, there's this negotiation that happens that either half or over time the admin disappears, that it becomes entirely self-owned in a collective ownership, a co-op. Those are my biggest comments. Other than that, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I just think that
it could be a little
more. I think it'd be more aggressive and critical.
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean to have value? And having value isn't just having creating a system where nice amenities are provided that kind of builds a little bit of resiliency. I think it ultimately comes down to the ability to kind of invest in the equity that you have within an environment, and then the power of shared equity. That's the thing that will create the How are you? What's your technique for modeling and developing this? Is this I have no idea at this point.
Yeah, this is the software that I shared with people, the Magical Voxel.
I like it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Can you see that?
No.
Okay. Let me reshare then.
Oh yeah, there you go. Nice.
And oops. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. There's like the world, and I get to like choose which specific like grid that I want to work on, because I set that up and stuff like that. And like I get to like copy and paste like assets or like all these grids, and then there's like a specific render button that allows you to do all these stuff. And there's also apparently a GIF version and animation that you can like cycle through. And I thought this was like a pretty good tool and creation of the assets, because it got a little grid-y. I'm not sure if that's the word, but yeah. And apparently there's a way to export it to object.obj.
Yeah.
Unity understands. So I can like directly like insert this into Unity and like start to like animate this and like give them information.
Tom, is this like a block, like it's a pre-made block, or you made this?
No, this is okay. Here,
Tom block.
Oh,
this is okay. Here we go. This is just like a complete new thing, and then what I get to do is just like, I see what just carve it like wherever the heck I want.
Yeah, I see that. So you built it. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a built environment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of like the route that I'm taking. Hopefully I can produce like an actual playable demo, I guess is the correct term, as opposed to a finished game. But
Yeah, right.
yeah, along with a trailer. So that's what I'm hoping to do in the
It
next
looks,
week and a
yeah,
half.
it looks good. I'm excited. I think my biggest comments are push it farther.
Right.
Into, like conceptions of ownership and what that means in terms of building equity.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That's a great point.
Okay. Sweet. You guys have any other thoughts? Great work, everyone. This is awesome. I'm super excited. This is where I was hoping the studio would go. So I'm really glad to see all the development. I appreciate it. I hope you guys are excited too.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. I'll post this video. I recorded this and I'll post some additional details. I would like to meet Monday as one, just quickly as a group. And then we'll just have individual reviews next week, just to like whoever wants to talk to me kind of thing, to help maybe a little bit of project therapy.
Yeah, we'll probably need it at that point. So high on coffee, just like shaking.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's how it usually goes.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you later.
All right. See you, Mike.
Good night, everyone.